Welcome into the Week 10 Fantasy Recap. As always, we start with redraft. This was redraft's 50-50 week. It came down to the wire on Monday night, as it normally does. The teams that picked up wins are Steel Curtain, Leftist Tears, Scoob the Delinquent, Gumpy Glizzies, and the Stoners. Our division first place teams are Steel Curtain and Leftist Tears via a tiebreaker with the Stoners, where Leftist Tears has 58 wins and versus all teams, and the Stoners have 56 wins versus all teams. So based on the selection by each first-place team, our Week 11 Conference Tournament semifinal matchups will be Leftist Tears versus Gumpy Glizzies, the Stoners versus Bills Mafia, Steel Curtain versus Washington Rednecks, no pun intended, versus Scoob the Delinquent. As you can see, the brackets are posted. Each of these games counts for the regular season. If you win both games, that means you win the conference tournament, and you're automatically in the playoffs. You do not automatically get like one seed or anything like that. We'll reseed once we know who are in the playoffs there. The only two teams that are currently out are the Red Carpets and Nico's League. If the Stoners, Leftist Tears, or Steel Curtain pick up a win in any of their next two games, they'll lock up a spot in the playoffs. Washington Rednecks and Bills Mafia must win both of their next two games to make it. If either of them win both of their next two games, they're in, or if both of them win their next two games, they're both in. Scoob the Delinquent doesn't have to win both of their next two, but there are very few scenarios where they make it to the playoffs if they don't win both of them. And then Gumpy Glizzies, and no pun intended, have a good shot to make the playoffs, but there are a decent amount of scenarios that would keep them out. If either of them win at least one game of their next two, there would only be very few scenarios that keep them out. Our Week 11 redraft power rankings, starting at the bottom, number 10, not moving, the Red Carpets. And number 9, staying put, Nico's League. And number 8, not moving, Bills Mafia. And number 7, staying put, Washington Rednecks. And number 6, moving down 3 spots, no pun intended. And number 5, staying put, the Scoob the Delinquent. And number 4, not moving, the Stoners. And number 3, moving up 3 spots, Steel Curtain. And number 2, staying put, Gumpy Glizzies. And remaining in the number 1 spot is Leftist Tears. All right, we move into Dynasty. Cumber Dynasty 4-6 defeats Nico's Dream Team 4-6, 132.96 to 128.04. Cumber Dynasty takes care of Nico's Dream Team to improve to 4-6 and join the logjam of teams vying for the berth to the play-in game. This one came down to Monday Night Football, more specifically the last 5 minutes of the game. Javonte Williams' 3-yard touchdown reception and Josh Allen's ensuing drive finding the end zone with his legs pushed Cumber Dynasty past Nico's Dream Team for the all-important 4th win. Had Cumber Dynasty lost, they'd hold the last place spot on their own despite being the top-ranked team to start the season. This matchup between Cumber Dynasty and Nico's Dream Team has been played a tremendous 11 times, with Cumber Dynasty reigning victorious 8 of those 11. Gump Dynasty 7-3 defeats the Scoob Empire 4-6, 135.46 to 106.42. Gump Dynasty cruises past the Scoob Empire, locking up their playoff spot and officially avoiding the lake in Dynasty this season. Justin Herbert led the way with 30.42 fantasy points in the highest scoring game of the week against the Lions. Kenneth Walker also impressed, nearing the 20-point mark at home against Washington. The Scoob Empire falls to 4-6, tied with 5 other teams in what could be a wild race for the playoffs. This is only Gump Dynasty's 2nd win all-time over the Scoob Empire in the 8 contests played between the two. Season Raccoon 74, 7-3 defeats Stratton Oakmont Inc. 6-4, 141.76 to 103.02. The game of the week was one-sided this time, going in favor of Season Raccoon 74 and granting them the right to select their Week 11 opponent. This win for Season Raccoon 74 also locked up a playoff spot and keeps them out of the lake in Dynasty, though redraft is a separate issue. Jahmyr Gibbs, the 2nd overall pick in this year's rookie draft, explodes for 25 fantasy points, complementing his teammate Amon-Ra St. Brown's 25.2 points in the Lions' walk-off win over the Chargers. Of the 9 games played between these fierce rivals, CJ Raccoon 74 has won 5 and lost 4. Surprisingly, this matchup has never taken place in the playoffs, which has a decent shot to change this year. Prestige Worldwide 4-6 defeats I Am They 4-6, 158.78 to 157.2. We have an instant classic on our hands this week. In the league's biggest rivalry, a shootout commenced in Week 10 and left one team surely losing despite scoring the 2nd most points. It also became the closest game ever played by these two rivals. We didn't know which team would bear the heartbreak until Monday night, when James Cook and Russell Wilson had to combine for 30.65 points to push Prestige Worldwide over the hump. James Cook fumbled on the first drive of the game and barely touched the field for the rest of the first half. Wilson didn't pick up the slack, and it looked like IMD would fend off their rivals. That all changed with 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Wilson connected with Javonte Williams for a 3-yard passing touchdown, which gave Prestige Worldwide a boost and the ball back to the Bills. 2 plays later, James Cook rushes up the middle for 9 yards, fumbles the ball, picks up his own fumble, and rumbles down the field for 29 more. He then gained 20 more yards on the next 3 plays combined before Josh Allen scrambled to the end zone to give the Bills the lead. With the fantasy game dead even, all Prestige Worldwide needed was Russell Wilson to get at least 1 passing yard and not turn the ball over. Wilson got those few yards, but on a 3rd and long, Wilson heaved the ball up in desperation mode to try and get into field goal range. Bills defender Taron Johnson had an easy interception, which would have ended the game in favor for both Bills and IMD, but he never turned his head, instead trucking Jerry Jeudy, landing a defensive pass interference call and allowing the Broncos to not have to throw the ball again, sealing a wild end to the fantasy regular season for Prestige Worldwide. Our Week 11 Dynasty Power Rankings have not changed from last week. No one has moved. So starting at the bottom is number 8, Prestige Worldwide. Number 7, Scoop Empire. Number 6, IMD. Number 5, Nico's Dream Team. Number 4, Comer Dynasty. Number 3, Stratton Oakmont Inc. Number 2, Gump Dynasty. And number 1, Sneezy Raccoon 74. Our division first place teams are Gump Dynasty and Sneezy Raccoon 74. Based on the selection by each first place team, our Week 11 Conference Tournament semifinal matchups will be Sneezy Raccoon 74 versus Comer Dynasty, Stratton Oakmont Inc. versus Nico's Dream Team, Gump Dynasty versus I Am They, and Prestige Worldwide versus the Scoop Empire. For the logjam of 4 and 6 teams, every 4 and 6 team will have to cheer for Stratton Oakmont Inc., Gump Dynasty, and Sneezy Raccoon 74, unless you are playing against that team. For each 4 and 6 team, winning both of your next 2 games will get you in the playoffs, but losing just one of them will hinder your chances significantly. So, make sure to cheer for Stratton Oakmont Inc., Gump Dynasty, and Sneezy Raccoon 74 unless you are playing against them for both of these 2 weeks to try to get into the playoffs. Playoff scenarios will be coming next week, and we'll try to, make sense of the opportunities that each team has to get into the playoffs, to get, 1 seed, 4, 5 seed, all that kind of stuff. So that'll be coming next week. All right, we'll move into Idle League. Idle League had its 3rd and final 50-50 week this week. The teams that came out with wins are Slower Ponies, Chad's Personal Shop Vac, Death, Fudge Packers, and Red Riders. Red Riders has clinched top 3, meaning they will be playing in the championship semifinals. And Bucknuts has officially been eliminated from the playoffs. There are no scenarios where Bucknuts reaches the 7 seed, so Bucknuts will be playing in the last place semifinals. I don't have full playoff scenarios because of the amount of things that could possibly happen, but I will have those for next week. In the meantime, I have something really important, actually. Here is a Week 11 rooting guide. So just for Week 11 here, for your team, this is who you are rooting for. Obviously, you're rooting for your team to win, but also these other teams to win to help your playoff chances or help, get a better seed or anything like that. So Red Riders will be rooting for Slower Ponies. Fudge Packers will be rooting for Slower Ponies and Death. The United States Postal Service will be rooting for Death. Slower Ponies will be rooting for Death and Bucknuts. Chad's Personal Shop Vac will be rooting for United States Postal Service, Red Riders, Bucknuts, and East Savages. Death will be rooting for United States Postal Service and Bucknuts. Show Them TDs will be rooting for United States Postal Service and Death. And both East Savages and Influence Driving will have to root for Bucknuts, United States Postal Service, and Death. Bucknuts doesn't have to root for anyone because they are already in the last place semifinals. So make sure you go back and listen to which teams that you are rooting for this week 11 so that you know who you need to win. And we will end with our week 11 Idle League power rankings, starting from the bottom. At number 10, Not Moving is Death. At number 9, moving down 2 spots, Bucknuts. At number 8, moving up 1 spot, Influence Driving. At number 7, moving down 1 spot, East Savages. At number 6, moving up 2 spots, Fudge Packers. At number 5, moving down 1 spot, Show Them TDs. At number 4, moving up 1 spot, United States Postal Service. At number 3, staying put, Chad's Personal Shop Vac. At number 2, not moving, Slower Ponies. And remaining in the number 1 spot is Red Riders. Remember, we will have playoff scenarios next week, so next week's recap is extremely important for everyone vying for the playoffs, so make sure you remember to tune in for that. Thanks for listening to Week 10. We'll see you in Week 11.